episode of Blackjack Cooking, where today we're going to be doing open-faced pot roast sandwiches. This is actually one of my favorites, one of my wife's favorites. Takes a little while to do, but we'll go ahead and dive right into it. First thing we're going to do is, so we're going to go ahead and get our Dutch oven. It's going to be getting hot. Just like I always do, we're going to go with some bacon grease right here. We're going to get that into the pot. There we go. That way we get a nice, good, foundation in there. And get that set up right there. Throw that in the sink. And then, so now while that's heating up, what we're going to do, we're going to turn our attention to the meat real quick. So what I have here, let's move these herbs out of the way. What I have here is about a 2.5 pound chuck roast. So we're going to season it up. First thing we're going to do, we're going to hit it with some olive oil. And what that's going to do is basically act as the binder. So we're going to rub that down real quick. And there we go. Make sure we get good coating all the way around. Now, once we're done with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my hands real quick. There we go. Dry hands off real quick. So, and then, one thing I like to use, this is actually Larson's brand. Rustic Rosemary Garlic Rub. I am not sponsored by them. However, if you're wanting to make up a good rub for a pot roast, this is essentially just rosemary, salt, garlic powder, black pepper, a couple of other things that are in it. So we're going to make sure that we're going to start getting a good rub on there. We'll make sure we got a good coating on there. Let's go ahead and open this up just a little bit. There we go, rub that. All that side. Flip it over. Get it on this side. Want to get all the edges as well. There we go. And you see it's got good thick salt, a lot of herbs, a lot of good stuff. There we go. So we're going to let that sit there for a minute. And then I'm going to rinse my hands off again. That's the only downside with rubbing and working with meat is having to wash your hands so much. There we go. Alright, so let's see how we're looking here. So we're starting to come along. We're getting there. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and transition this meat. And we're going to sear this meat off. So, grab it, drop it in there. There we go. I've got that temperature. I got that burner as high as it'll go. So you just want to let it go. I'd say probably a minute, 2 minutes per side. Make sure you get your edges. What you're really looking for is a good crust. So you're building crust in that. So once we get, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sear this off. And then once it's seared, I'll see you on the other side. Alright, so now that we have the meat seared off, got a good sear on there, so you get the crust all the way around. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna move this over to this cast iron skillet right here, because I have a little bit of a surprise for you guys. So what I like to do anytime I'm doing a large hunk of meat like this, I like to throw it on the smoker or the pit balls for about an hour, real low temperature, just to let it get some of that smoke in there. So that's where we're about to be going. That's where we're going to head to. So I will see y'all in just a minute, and we'll be out by the pit balls getting us some smoke. All right, so now we're actually on my front porch. So we're actually going to try to get some smoke on this chuck roast. That's one of the reasons I moved it to the cast iron skillet. I just like the way that it cooks. So what I have here, I've got my pit balls. It is set on smoke, roughly about 180 to 200 degrees. Not trying to cook it, hot. We just want to get some smoke flavor going in here. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open it up, and then just going to take this, set it right there in the middle, and then it's just going to kind of sit here and hang out for about the next hour and a half. Just get a good smoke flavor on there. Like I said, we're not really trying to cook it right now. We're just trying to get some good smoke on it. So the next time I see y'all will be when we're pulling this off, probably in about another hour or so, and we're getting ready to move it into the pot and make it an actual pot roast. Alright, so now what we're going to do, we're going to start building our sauce, our gravy for the pot roast. Pot roast is still out on the smoker, but we want to go ahead and get this started so that it's ready when the pot roast comes off of the smoker. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and kick our heat up on the pot. In the time, it's kind of cooled off a little bit, so we're going to let that come up and crank it up to high, let that temperature come up. While that's coming up, I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you what we're working with here. So we've got a classic mirepoix here. Going to go with onions, celery, carrots, as well as some minced garlic. We're also going to be doing a little bit of red wine. And then once all that cooks down, we're going to finish it off with some beef broth. And also, actually we'll be adding some flour to it as well to go ahead and build kind of a gravy that the pot roast can sit in the oven and just kind of marinate and, you know, just build a bunch of flavors. So what we're going to do, let's see how we're going here. Also, we have fresh herbs, which I'll show you here in just a minute. So it looks like we're about to be coming up to temperature. That smells really, really, really good. So what we're going to start with, I know a lot of people start with their onions first. I like to start with the carrots. Carrots are a root vegetable. They take a little bit longer to cook and soften up. So we're going to go ahead and throw that in there. And then we'll start stirring that around while that's coming up to temperature. Give those carrots a chance to kind of cook down. I'm trying to scrape everything off the bottom of that pot from browning that meat. There we go. Here it's starting to sizzle. That's what we want. So we're going to kind of move everything to the middle here. There we go. Set that right there. Always got to have my wooden spatula. I don't know, it might be where I came from, might be how I grew up. Good wooden spatula and cast iron. If you notice, I got a lot of cast iron sitting around. Always makes everything taste better. So if you don't have cast iron, I would recommend getting some. And also with a wooden spatula, you can sit here and you can rub and scrape the bottom of a pot or whatever, and you don't have to worry about melting your spatula or anything like that. Or if it's, you know, you use a metal spatula, you got to worry about, you know, scratching the bottom of the pot or something like that. So the carrots look like they're coming up to temperature, like they're starting to cook pretty good. There we go. So what we're going to do now, we're going to throw in our onions. let those come up. And this is the same grease that we use to brown and sear the pot roast. So we're going to let that go. There we go. Got that going real good. So while that's going, also we'll go ahead and throw our celery in there. And this is roughly about let's see, that's one whole onion, roughly 2 or 3 carrots, and roughly 2 to 3 stalks of celery. All of it's chopped real fine. Because like I said in my last video, I've got kids that don't necessarily like to see all of that, but they like the flavor of it. So we're going to let that cook down a little bit. Like I said, we have it on high heat right now. Almost had a boo-boo. So what we're going to do, we're going to throw a little bit of salt in there, a little bit of kosher salt, and that's going to help cook down the onions, cook down the celery and the carrots, draw some moisture out so we get some good caramelization on there. Just stir that up real good. And then we're just going to leave it alone for a minute. So while that's going, we'll go ahead and get our garlic ready. So we got garlic here. Grab me a spoon. And the thing is, if you throw your garlic in too early, you can burn your garlic. So I like to kind of throw my garlic in a little bit later. And I'm going to do about a teaspoon. I like a lot of garlic. So let that roll, set that off to the side. And I'm going to get me a swallow of this wine. We'll be using that in the cook here in just a minute. And so I got a lot of family who are from Louisiana, who are Cajuns, and one of their mantras is you never cook with a wine you wouldn't drink. So make sure it's a good wine that you like, something like that. So what I'll be using tonight in this, when this cooks down, is I'm using a Merlot. Also, we'll go ahead and throw some black pepper in here. There we go. We're starting to get some good caramelization on these onions. Celery starting to cook down. Starting to go. I like a lot of aromatics and a lot of veggies in my stuff. So once we get... Alright, so right now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and add our wine. Actually, no, we're not. Because we want this to turn into a gravy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of flour. And I'm going to throw it on top of that. Now we're going to cook that flour down. Roughly about a 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup. Just like that. Then we're going to let that flour cook down. Because here's the thing, if you wait and throw the flour in later, it'll be raw, kind of cereal tasting, and nobody really cares for raw flour. There we go. You see it just got really, really dry in there. So we got the heat cranked. We're going to let that caramelize a little bit. There we go. And then, now that that's caramelized, we got the flour in the bottom of the pot. I'll go ahead and deglaze that with a little red wine. And we're gonna let that wine cook down. Got a good deal on them. Here we go. Wine's cooking down. Everything's coming together. See how it's starting to kind of get stiff like that? We want that. That's so now let that wine cook down. What I'm going to add now is beef broth. Just Swanson's beef broth is what I'm using. You can really use any kind of beef broth. And we're going to throw this whole box in there. And we're going to let that come up to temperature. Throw that in the trash. Throw that in the trash. Doesn't look like much right now, but as it cooks down, might have to add a little bit of water. But really what we're trying to do is we're creating a liquid base for when we bring that roast in off the smoker. We'll put it in here, and then at that point what we're going to do is lid it up, throw it in the oven, and let it roll for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. So bring this up to temperature, let it come to a boil. Once it gets to a boil, and what we're going to do then is we will add our fresh herbs, which what we have here. This all came out of my herb garden. We have rosemary, thyme, and oregano. And I'm not going to chop those up. Essentially, I'm going to leave them whole. That way, once the roast is done, I can pull all of this out of the pot, and then we'll sandwich up the roast, or make pot roast sandwiches out of it. So, waiting on that to come to a boil. I don't know what to do. I feel like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. All that's going to get edited out. All right, so we are now, we're starting to get to a good boil on our gravy base for our pot roast. A couple of little extra things I'm going to add in there, just for some extra flavor. I'm going to throw some minced onion in there. I like a good onion base, mushroom base. I don't have any mushrooms, but also I like to use bay leaves in just about any kind of soup or anything that I cook. So I just throw 2 sounds good in there. And then, so what we'll do, like I said earlier, we have our rosemary, our thyme, our oregano. We're going to throw that in there. And we're throwing that in there whole so that I can pull it out. Next time I see you, we'll be pulling the meat off the smoker, putting it over into the pot, and then we'll be moving everything into the oven. So, we went ahead and we brought our meat in. It got too dark outside. I wanted to get a shot of it, but we couldn't get good lighting on it. But the meat is now ready to go into the gravy and the broth, and then it's going to go in the oven for, I would say at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, until it is fork tender. And so we're going to go ahead and put it over here into the gravy, and then that gravy ought to thicken up a good bit while it's in the oven. Also, another thing I like to do, because we've had a lot of flavor, a lot of good smoke coming, so I'll take all that juice that we had and I'll pour that over the meat into there. There we go. Got that going good. So now what we're going to do, we've already preheated our oven to 350. You can run from 350 to 375. Then go ahead and lid it up. Just like that. We'll kill the heat on our burner. And so now what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and throw it in the oven. and we will let it roll in the oven. I wish I could tell you an exact time. I really can't. If I had to guess, I'd say about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, until it is fork tender. And time I see you, we'll be pulling it out of the oven and getting ready to make some sandwiches. All right, so we're back. We're actually about 2.5 hours later, so it took a little bit longer than what I expected it to. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the pot roast out. It's been in the oven at 350 degrees for about 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2.5 hours, somewhere around there. So we're going to take a look at it real quick. We're going to pull it out. Ooh, starting to smell real good. So what we're testing for, we want to check, make sure it's tender. So I can just take my spatula and push it straight through just like that. That tells me that this is ready. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull these bay leaves out and all these herbs that I put in earlier. Nobody wants to chew on whole bay leaves. They've done their job. They've given up all that they're going to give up. So what we will do now is we'll go over here and we'll grab us a plate right here. So right here what I've got a loaf of Italian bread. One way I like to do it is I just take me a couple of pieces, however you want to sort them out on the plate. There we go, just like that. And then what I'll do is I'll get the tongs and I'll get it broke up real good, just like this. So you see it's just pretty much just pulling apart. Real good like that. And we'll get us a good healthy helping. And we'll put it on top of the bread. Oop, get out of there. Don't need you no more. There we go. Just like that. Drop that right there. We're going to set this over here. We're going to get a little bit of that gravy. There we go. I want to make sure we got a good bit of that gravy on the on that bread. There we go, just like that. And then, so right there, you have open face pot roast sandwich on Italian bread. Instead of about a 2.5 pound chuck roast that we started with, we seared it off, threw it on the smoker for about an hour, hour and a half. In that time, we started our vegetables, our aromatics, and everything else here. To build the base for the gravy. Once it was done with the once it was done on the smoker, we brought it back in, threw it in the Dutch oven with the gravy, the aromatics, and all the vegetables, and then threw it in the oven. Like I said before, I wish I could tell you an exact time. I really don't have one. Anywhere from an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, until it's fork tender, pulled apart, and just lay it on bread. I personally like the Italian loaf. I have been known to just throw it on plain white bread or wheat bread, if that's all you've got. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you try the recipe. And if you have any recommendations, I'd be glad to hear them. Thank you and have a great night.